Let's talk about Peter Singer's Famine, Affluence, and Morality. Peter Singer is a contemporary philosopher, so we're jumping ahead in time and we're going to move back in time a little bit next week. The reason that I wanted to treat Singer is because he is probably the best known living consequentialist. This is a very well known piece that he wrote in the 70s. And so I thought it would be nice to give you a chance to engage with it. So his strategy in arguing in this paper is a good one to adopt in your own writing. So if you're able to, it's an effective strategy. What he tries to do is he tries to show that anyone who shares a couple of basic assumptions with him that he presents as relatively uncontroversial should then share his conclusion, which his conclusion in this article is quite controversial, as I'm sure you realized. Um, so let's talk about what the assumptions are. Assumption one is that suffering and death from lack of food, shelter, and medical care is bad. Presumably, if you don't share this assumption, you're going to be off board immediately, but he thinks that you will. He thinks you will agree that suffering and death from lack of food, shelter, and medical care is a bad thing. So think about it for a moment. Do you agree? If so, then see if you agree with his second assumption. His second assumption is if it's in our power to prevent something bad from happening without sacrificing anything of comparable moral importance, we ought to do it. So if it's possible for you to prevent something bad from happening without causing something just as bad to happen, or he says doing something wrong in itself, or failing to promote a comparable good, then you should do it. Okay, he adjusts that second assumption to something a little milder. So it's the milder one that I'll focus on in this video. He adjusts it to if it's in our power to prevent something very bad from happening without sacrificing something morally significant. So here it doesn't even have to be comparably significant. It just has to be morally significant in some way. We ought morally to do it. To try to clear up what he means by this principle, he gives us the example of the child who's drowning in a shallow pond. So imagine you're walking by a child who's drowning in a shallow pond. I'm going to flesh out the example a little bit. Let's say you have very, very expensive shoes on that are hard to take off, so you can't just take them off and go in and save the child. Going in the pond to save the child will ruin your shoes. Should you do it? He thinks the obvious answer is yes. I do have to sacrifice something there, my shoes, to save the child, but he thinks the child's life is clearly more important than my shoes. And more than that, my shoes, he thinks, are not morally important. That's not a morally important sacrifice. The sacrifice of the child's life would be. So I'm preventing something very bad from happening. I'm preventing a child from drowning without sacrificing anything morally significant. I sacrifice my shoes, but it's not morally significant. And so he thinks I should do it. Do you think you should do it? If so, right, he's going to draw a fairly radical conclusion. The fairly radical conclusion is that all of us who are in an affluent country who have some extra stuff, so if you don't have any morally insignificant stuff, this won't apply to you, but if you've got some extra stuff, some shoes you don't need, some clothes you don't need, the money and resources that you spend on those things when you could be saving children's lives, not drowning children right in front of you, right, but children elsewhere in the world who are dying from lack of food, shelter, and medical care, the money that you're spending on non-necessities when you could be saving their lives is money that's being spent wrong. You're doing something he thinks morally wrong when you choose to purchase things that are not morally significant rather than give your money to organizations, to people who could make sure that children's lives are saved with that money. Okay, so when you go shopping for a new sweater that you don't need but would like, are you like the person walking by a child drowning in a shallow pond because you don't want to ruin your shoes? Um, I mean, it's a pretty radical claim to say that that's what you're like, right? But there's a sense in which that's what Singer is suggesting, that you are doing something morally wrong when you're not spending your resources to save lives, and you could be. So, doesn't it make a difference that in the shallow pond case, the child is drowning right in front of me? Yeah, okay, I admit there are some people somewhere dying of, a lack of food, shelter, or medical care. There's a child somewhere who's dying of starvation, but they're not in front of me. Doesn't that make a difference in my obligation? And Singer thinks no. He thinks it makes a psychological difference, makes a difference in my mind, right? It's much easier to not send money to a child who's starving in another country than it is to walk by a drowning child. But he doesn't think it makes a moral difference. Morally, he thinks it's just the same. Buying an expensive sweater instead of saving a starving child in another country is, he thinks, morally the same as refusing to get my shoes wet when I'm walking by and just walking by a drowning child. So he doesn't think we can discriminate against somebody just because they're far away. He doesn't think that gives us good moral reason to refuse to help. Now, what about the fact that I can't really know what my money's going to if I send it elsewhere? If I walk in and save a child who's drowning, I'm physically doing something. I can see myself saving them. I don't know what's happening overseas if I send my money elsewhere, or in another state if I send my money somewhere else in the United States. He doesn't seem to think we can get out of it that easy. He seems to think and he's writing in the 70s, so even more so, this would apply today, that we have access to enough knowledge, enough information about where our money goes, what different organizations do, that we should be able to make decisions that really do save lives on a reliable basis. Now, what about the fact that, let's say that our concern is children dying of starvation. What about the fact that if everyone just gave a little bit, let's say everyone gave $5, that starvation could be solved, right? Maybe we could feed the world if everyone just gave $5. Doesn't that mean, so in that hypothetical situation where we could feed the world if everyone just gave $5, doesn't that mean that I'm only obligated to give $5? And he says no, right? And the reason he says no is that he thinks, okay, yeah, if everyone gave $5, you would only be obligated to give $5, but everyone won't give $5, right? We know there are lots of people who aren't going to give anything. So given that, what we're obligated to do on Singer's account is give as much as we can until we come to the point where giving more would mean sacrificing something morally significant. Now, what morally significant means is going to be contentious, right? So we're going to have to figure that out. But he's going to think your extra fancy shoes, your non-necessary sweaters, right? Those are not going to count as things that are morally significant. And maybe you could make a case that they do count as things that are morally significant. And you're certainly free to think about that and try to do that. But I think he takes for granted that those are not going to count as morally significant items. He even suggests that maybe we can go back to the stronger version of the first assumption, the one that he made it milder at the beginning. He thinks maybe we can go back to the stronger version. He thinks there's no reason not to. On the stronger version, I need to give up to the point where it would mean sacrificing something of comparable moral importance. That's a big deal, right? Where it would mean sacrificing something comparable. That would mean I'm obligated to give probably even more than than in the first case where I just need to give until it would mean sacrificing something morally significant. What all of this means for Singer is that if he's right, we need to significantly, he says, redraw the lines between what we consider our duty and what we consider charity. So right now, if I give, an extra $1,000 this year to a charity, most people would pat me on the back, would say, wow, Ashley, you just did something really, really good, something extra, something amazing, something some people do, and that's great, but not something everyone has to do. He's suggesting that a lot of what we consider charity is actually just what is our duty. That in fact, if I don't give, when I could save a life by giving, I'm doing something morally bad. I'm not just, not doing a bonus good act. I'm in fact doing a bad act by not giving. So if you have extra and you could give, and you could save lives, but you don't save those lives and instead choose to go to a concert or go out for a nice dinner or whatever, then you're actively doing something wrong from Singer's perspective. And that's a radical position. So it's something to think about. There's a reason that this article has remained popular. It tends to generate a lot of thought and conversation, even and maybe especially from those who vehemently disagree with its conclusions. So certainly it hasn't been thrown in here because I think you need to agree with his conclusions, but it's just something to think about.